You Choose Sunday on a Thursday. What? I can do what I want.
I love it. I appreciate you doing this.
Everybody, guess who I have today? Watch this. Watch me now. I've got Carly Podzikowski. What? In the house. Yay! Carly, thank you for being here today. I'm really excited to talk to you. We couldn't make it work on a Sunday, but I'm good with a Thursday as long as you are.
I love it. I appreciate you doing this so much.
I appreciate you accepting my invitation, because I think this conversation, which is really centered around wellness, which is really centered around chronic illness and how we can continue to be well, even when we are dealing with illness, is going to be very important to a lot of people.
Yeah.
We don't talk about chronic illness a lot to begin with, and we definitely don't talk about, navigating chronic illness in workspaces. So, yeah, I'm excited to talk. So before we do that, I try to every time. Sometimes I start talking, I forget to tell people, but I think it's important to let people know how we are acquainted. And most of the time it's like, I met so-and-so on LinkedIn. Not true. Not true for you and I.
No.
So Carly and I actually met back in, it's 2018 now. We met in 2018 when we were both going through the Build Institute, because we were both building businesses. I was actually, I had just left my job, really had no idea what I was going to do with my life, but knew I never wanted to work for anyone again. Knew that much. And you were building your business too. And so we met through this cohort that took place in Ferndale, Michigan, through the Build Institute. And then we've got mutual friends in common through the She Hive, also through Ferndale, and the rest is history. We just clicked and we just kept on clicking, clickety clack. That's us.
We did.
So I got my start with my business through Build. I was not a person who, when I was working, I was like, I'm one day going to be a business owner. No, it came directly out of frustration and passion, both. And I said, okay, before I build this business, I better figure out what the hell I'm supposed to be doing. But you kind of had some thoughts about what you wanted to do. So I want you to tell us what you're doing now, and then let's get into talking about chronic illness and really how it affects your day-to-day life. And other lives too.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of all intertwined. So when you and I met at Build, I think I was in a similar place with where I was working at the time. Wow. And I was finding a lot of my friends were having a really hard time too. They were like, how are you so outspoken at work about like having symptoms, about what it is that you need? And I was like, how are we not? Like, why are we not having these conversations? So, my thought process going into Build was I would like to help people advocate for themselves as a patient with their medical team. That was what I wish I had like more of a mentor in that role. But when I got my diagnosis, it was a lot of books that weren't helpful. And it just didn't like feel like these aren't the right questions I want to be asking and how to navigate it. So kind of like reaching behind as I was getting to that point. So that's kind of where it was. But Build was sort of pivotal for me in a different way, because that's where I wanted mentally. I kind of knew that that's where I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. My undergrad was in psych, and I determined just, pre-pandemic, but to go back to school and get my master's in clinical psychology. And so I'm currently in an accelerated program at the Michigan School of Psychology.
Awesome. And we'll talk about that too, because I think that will also be very important. But I want you to go back to chronic illness, and to more specifically your diagnosis. When did you get it? What was it? And what did you do from that point moving forward?
Well, it's kind of a longer story. So my actual diagnosis of relapse remitting multiple sclerosis came in 2012. But I would say I probably started having symptoms in late 2010 and throughout 2011 that were just tricky. Like we didn't really understand what was happening. I shared earlier, like I think I have zero proof of this. It's just my inkling. I'm trying to listen to my body. It seemed to happen with my cycles. I think there's some sort of component for my MS that it is linked to hormones. As sort of like a PMS, I would get symptoms right before my cycle. And like I would lose feeling in my right leg 1 month, and then the next month it would be my left leg, and then a month after that it would be my right arm. So it was kind of sporadic the way it was happening, but I know for me, like stress is a big trigger. So the particular job I was in at the time was relatively stressful, and so I had to figure out how I could work with the team that I had. And for the vast majority of people that I worked with, they were very understanding. So I was really grateful for that. And I was able to take care of myself in those situations. And I'm kind of a little foggy today. So I'm even like having a hard time. I'm like, what was the third question?
That's all right. Well, let me ask you this, because you have answered my question about what your diagnosis was, and you said a specific kind of MS. Can you say what that was again?
Yeah, relapse remitting. So there are a couple different kinds. Excuse me, MS. And so for me, I'll have a relapse, but then it'll kind of go into a remission. So the lesions that I have might light up, in an MRI or something, but right now they seem to be pretty stable. So early on, you get a symptom. It was kind of flared up by stress generally for me. And then you probably, well, for most of the instances, I've gained a lot of function back. There's still some function that I haven't. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about stress and chronic illness. Now, you were at that time working in an environment that could be somewhat stressful, and you were dealing with this chronic illness. And what I just heard you say was that sometimes that stress triggered some of the symptoms that you were dealing with. So how did you manage that? You're not there anymore, so I can tell you how I think you managed it. But while you were there, were there some specific things that you were able to do that helped minimize that stress? And I ask that because we don't talk about mental health in the workplace much. We sometimes shame people for what they may be going through with. And so it can be very difficult to try to maintain professionalism, and air quotes, professionalism, when you're dealing with some real life stuff that affects who you are at your core and how you show up in the world. So what was that like for you?
Well, it was pretty confusing at the time because I didn't understand what was going on with my body, and there isn't a cure or reason why people get MS. Like they still don't know that. So all of that was pretty confusing, but kind of like I said before, with the people that I was working with, thankfully they were very understanding. So I worked for a coalition within Ferndale for a while, and within a greater, larger coalition base, I'll shout out for ACHC coalition, and it was drug and alcohol abuse prevention for kids. So we were kind of already in that mental health space. So it was a little more acceptable there wasn't as much stigma. We were working on stigma around substance abuse. So it was helpful. And I think the way that I was able to get through it was to ask for a lot of help, which was uncomfortable. It's still very uncomfortable. But, I was getting to the point where it was just completely detrimental to my own health to maintain what I was doing. So I didn't have a choice. Did not have a choice.
So I think that when you brought up asking for help and talking about it, that's the hard part for people, because again, we don't want to seem weak. So, we try to push through whatever illness we are dealing with. And it ultimately makes everything worse. So I know that you are also in school for psychology right now. So I'm going to ask you to put on your hat. Okay, put on that hat, girl. And tell us, first of all, I want to put up just a really quick question for everyone. And welcome to everyone who's watching, whether you're watching on Facebook Live or LinkedIn. Please drop into the comments and let me know where you're watching from. But also, I want you to answer, if you are dealing with chronic illness, how are you handling your chronic illness, especially during the pandemic? Because, so first of all, we don't talk about it in the workplace. And then second of all, we're in this pandemic too. So there's this added pressure of, well, everybody's going through something, so I don't want to make it about me, right? So putting on your therapist hat, what are some ways we can make sure we are honoring our bodies and how we feel, and especially those of us who have a specific diagnosis and we are dealing with serious chronic illness? How do we take care of ourselves while also taking care of our business, whatever business that is? And I don't mean your business, but whatever business that you have day to day. Maybe your business is taking care of your kids and your family. Maybe your business is you're an attorney and you've got to be in court. But you're dealing with chronic illness and stress. What does management look like for those folks?
I think one of the things that has helped me personally, but I think it's also, Ursula would love this, but like giving ourselves just a permission slip to say no. Like your plate is only so big, right? Like you can't, nor should you really have to do all of the things that pre-pandemic that we would have done. And I think a lot of folks are recognizing that and like, how did I do all of this? Where is this time? And like, we are all living in the middle of a pandemic right now. And yes, and I hear what you're saying too, like about the, everybody's dealing with something, and that is easy to like push it off. But I think my favorite thing during the pandemic has just been like learning to say no for like, really, what is my capacity right now?
Yeah. And not feeling guilty about that, because
that's a different story.
I can tell you just my experience in the workplace was, and this wasn't something that somebody necessarily did to me. I'm sure the environment helped me do this to myself. But I felt weak, and I felt like I didn't contribute unless I was going full throttle the whole time. And my health was suffering. And honestly, I think my mental health was suffering. I have so I have a phobia that I don't talk about, that I'm not going to tell people what it is, but it got very bad towards the end of where I was when I was working, and I was very stressed out, and I would wake up in the morning crying and not want to go to work. And then something happened where I would not go to work. Like I legit was refusing to go to work. And I think the only person who saw that happening to me outside of my family, who was very concerned for me, the people who I live with and my dad, they were very concerned for me, but someone in HR. And I know that HR gets a lot of flack because everybody knows HR is for you, but they're not really for you. They're for the company. But somebody who cared about me in HR said to me, you do not have to go back there. You can work somewhere else, because it just was not good. And I wasn't honoring myself. I was stressed out. And then what happened is I did have an episode, which had nothing to do with my phobia, but I had some issues that happened with my ear. And I was eventually diagnosed with what's called vestibular neuritis. So I didn't drive for months. I was using a walker for months. I could not see correctly for months, but I was still working. I was still working because I felt like I had something to prove. I felt like I had something to prove. I didn't want to seem like I wasn't pulling my weight. And I'll tell you what changed for me is I'll never forget. I was on a lot of heavy medication because I had a lot of anxiety because I wasn't able to see either. So every time I turned my head, everything came with me. So that's why I couldn't drive. I needed help. When I got home, I needed help showering. I really needed help with everything. And not a lot of people knew that because I kept working, even though I was working from home. And I just remember this one time, I also was doing a lot of writing for our in-house agency. And I'm usually a strong writer, but I had some things going on. And I just remember sending off this sample and it coming back and somebody telling me, somebody close, who I relied on for the work that I did and for feedback, told me that my writing was shit. And I just remember feeling like, do you know I don't even have to be working right now? Like I could be off. And then it changed everything for me. And then I started thinking to myself, you know what? I have an illness that I don't know how long I'm going to have. At that time, I was really scared because I didn't know like if it would change at all. And I started thinking like, I have to take care of myself. And so I just started making decisions. And so when you say you have to learn how to say no, that's not easy for a lot of people. And that was not easy for me at all. But you know what really changed for me is I thought to myself, I have this illness. It's not good. And if I drop dead today, they will replace me tomorrow. That's really what changed it for me, is the feeling that like nobody will care for me the way that I care for me and the way that my family cares for me. Yeah. So what are some things that you are telling some of the folks that you're working with to help them through whatever illness it is, whether it's a chronic illness like MS, or maybe they have some balance issues like I do. I still don't drive sometimes. This is why I love working from home, because I don't have to try to explain that to people anymore. What are some of the things that you help them to understand and that you can help support them in doing so that they can put themselves first?
Well, so I want to go back a little bit because one of the things I think that has been, for me, especially frustrating for people with chronic illness is that all of these companies have now demonstrated that people can work from home. And this is what we have been advocating for a very long time. And we're told repeatedly that couldn't be done. Yep. I was actually let go from a company recently because I wasn't comfortable putting my butt in the seat that they needed me to be in, even though there was an understanding that I have a chronic illness and it is not good for anyone to be in person at the time, but that's where we're at. So that in and of itself is, I hope that this stays from the pandemic. I hope that people will be allowed to work from home, like you said, without having an explanation. Like, yes, everybody needs a mental health day every once in a while. Yes. It doesn't just have to happen for folks with chronic illness. Yeah. A lot of people have a lot of shit on their plate. And if you need a day, you need a day. And I think that's probably one of the things that I've been talking with most of my clients about, is that being realistic in what you're able to manage, and prioritizing. I think, you know, it's hard because like most of me is like, oh, this is so capitalistic. Like, I really hate that we have to be productive and do all of those things and like have those conversations too. But it is what it is, and we have to be mindful of it, unfortunately.
Yeah. So let's talk a second about, because what you're saying is there is no right answer for everybody. It's going to change and the other thing too that we really have to understand, especially in speaking from a place of privilege, like I'm always like, just quit your job. Okay. That's what I say. But everybody can't quit their job. I understand. Right. You know what I mean? I'm fortunate that I was able to quit my job. without a backup plan. My backup plan was, damn it, I ain't never working for nobody else again because this experience just rubbed me down to the nubs. But that is not everyone's experience. Right. So I want to make sure that I make that clear. So I think it's important for, like you said, is for everybody to look at their own situation and look at what they can do. Look at what they can do. And honestly, if you work for an awful employer who does not understand what you need in order to do your job while working with a chronic illness, you might not be able to get up and leave when you want to, but damn it, get that resume out there and start looking. Yeah. Because most of the time outside of a pandemic, right, we spend most of our time at work. We spend more time at work than we do at home with the people that we love. And so it's really important for us to be in healthy places, in healthy workplaces where wellness thrives, where mental health, is priority. Yeah. And not everybody can do that. So I wanted to ask you about invisible illness. So first, what is an invisible illness? Because maybe some people don't know what I mean when I say invisible illness. And then how could someone advocate for themselves in the workplace or wherever they are when they have an invisible illness? And before you answer that, if you are watching, first of all, bless you. If you are watching and any of this resonates with you, I want to hear about it. And if you have questions, or if you have some ways that you are dealing with chronic illness, please let us know, because I think that's important for other people to understand and share that information. Information sharing is really good. So invisible illness, what is it? And how can somebody advocate for themselves in the workplace or out in the world with an invisible illness?
Yeah, so invisible illnesses are, I can pass as kind of an able-bodied person most of the time. I don't have a mobility aid the majority of the time. Actually, it's been years since I've needed one, and I'm very grateful for. But a lot of folks are dealing with things that we just can't see, right? So yeah. That's invisible illness, whether it's mental health or physical. It could be any of the above. I think one of the things that I intended with the business that sort of just morphed into my becoming a therapist is that, the goal initially with the business is called Invisible Advocate, is to advocate for yourself, especially in like medical relationships. Okay. So making sure you have open communication with your doctor. I've been through 5 or 6 neurologists at this point because I just didn't have good fits with the early ones that I had until I really recognized, like, okay, there's a hierarchy that happens with our doctors, right? Like, they know all of the things, but I'm an expert in what my body feels like and what it's doing. Right. And that's valid and needs to be heard in those relationships. So, it's making sure people identify that what you have to say about your body that you are living in is valid to share with your doctor.
Yeah. So I like that you explained that. Because a lot of times I had a recent experience with a doctor where I really wasn't asking questions. I had to go in, I have to see a cardiologist. And I was just like kind of letting them do tests without asking questions. And then talking to one of my very good friends and my husband, both of them were like, why weren't you asking questions? And when you weren't feeling comfortable, why weren't you saying anything? So I think that's really important too. Like, I have to do that with my own body. But in talking about invisible illnesses, I want to talk about some of the things that people say, okay, that are very ableist, okay? They tell on themselves the things they say and how we might respond, and how you might respond. So I remember having so much anxiety going back to work after months of being at home because I couldn't drive and I couldn't do a lot of things. And so when I went back to work months later, I remember driving to work and feeling like people are going to think I wasn't sick because I've been able to drive this hour to work. And I remember somebody well-meaning, they weren't trying to, it wasn't a dig, saying, oh, you look great. You don't look like you're sick at all. And I really wanted to throat punch her, but I also loved her. And I knew that she wasn't trying to make me feel bad. But honestly, I went into the bathroom and I was like, because I was like, this is exactly what I was afraid of, is that people weren't going to say you were just trying to stay your ass at home because you didn't want to work, because everybody knows you're unhappy, because I was. But man, I was dealing with some things. I really was. And I just remember feeling like just such anxiety around people saying like, well, you don't look like you're sick. And I was like, okay, well, tell my insurance company that, because guess what? They want this money for all this damn physical therapy I've been in, you know, for the last 6 months. Yeah. So I didn't know how to respond to that other than to say, well, sometimes bald people don't look bald, but they be wearing a wig. Like, that was my response. If this person is watching, they're going to be like, oh. But it happened. It happened. And I just didn't know how else to respond. So have you had that experience? And what was your response? And before you give me your response, Karen, I see you, girl. Karen says, you don't look sick, like in quotes, right? Yes. Karen, yes. I know that you have something to add, so I want to hear your response. I want to hear, Karen, like what you have been going through, okay? But Carly, go ahead and tell me how you have responded to this.
So yeah, I've gotten but you don't look sick, or you're too young to be this sick. Those are almost the same.
Ageist, right? Ageist and ableist.
Super ageist.
And ableist. I'm putting down all the ist.
Yes. 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 I think what is so frustrating is it's just that like invisibility. Like, I can hide when I want to hide, but if I can't hide, I don't know that I've figured out what to say to people, honestly, when they say that to me either, because it's so, you know, in my head, I kind of do, well, you don't look stupid, but here we are, you know, but it's just like so many people are going through things right now. And sometimes that can be like a trigger for me to like, I'll just kind of stay at home, like, well, maybe I am fine. Maybe I'm gaslighting, you know, like then I start gaslighting myself that like, well, maybe it's not that bad. Yep. You know, and that doesn't feel good either.
Which I have to say, sometimes these comments are microaggressions, right? Yeah. And if we know anything about a microaggression, what it does to the person experiencing it is a lot of times we question ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Well, am I really this sick? I mean, am I just getting used to feeling this way? And so maybe it's in my head. Like, that's what we do to ourselves. So I think it's really important for people to understand that too, is honor your body. And it doesn't matter if somebody says you look sick or you don't look. First of all, it's not their damn business. Okay. It's not. It's just not. It's not. It's not. It's not. It's not. I don't have to look sick to be sick. I will tell you, one of the things that I have enjoyed most about doing work for me virtually, besides the fact that now I serve clients all over the country because of Zoom, but the huge thing for me, and I only shared this with a couple people, but I'm just going to share it, is that sometimes my balance is still very bad. Like I hate going to Kroger. It's something about those aisles. Like I just can't do them. My eyes are literally moving. It's bad. But the best thing has been is that now I don't have to have anxiety about standing up in front of people. I would have extreme anxiety about standing up in front of people and presenting, and worrying about having to look up at a PowerPoint and then look back at people and wobbling. Yeah. And having them think, well, she must be drunk or something's going on with her. Like, people who were close with me knew that I was dealing with something, but it's not something that I shared, and I felt just really self-conscious about it. So now I do talk about it more, especially in my workshops, because I use that whole you don't look sick as a way to let people know, listen, just because somebody doesn't look sick to you doesn't mean they aren't dealing with things. So
absolutely,
I think it's a really great conversation. So so tell me, how are you staying healthy? How are you staying mentally healthy while you're dealing with all this stuff, because I know you said recently it's coming up, right? You're going to be having an infusion.
Yep.
Can you talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind?
Well, yeah, let me talk about the infusion first, and then we'll come back to the other question. But so I have been in a clinical trial for the last 9 years. So I got my diagnosis in April, maybe it was April 2011. Chronological order in my head doesn't work the same that it used to. But in 2011, I did start what is now an FDA-approved drug called Ocrevus. So I am coming up on this will be the 9-year actually for getting this infusion. Okay. So I tend to have a lot more brain fog and just tiredness in general. So my enjoyment of being at home during quarantine is I can take a nap at 3:00 if I need to, because that's when my body's tired. I just 20-minute power nap, but still. It's kind of interesting too. You bringing up, like, I'm thinking about the grocery store story still, because I've had a lot of people say something similar to that. The fluorescent lighting and the straight aisles that we have to go down, that is really hard for a lot of people with chronic illness. The lighting in there alone, and it's so draining for me. I literally have not been grocery shopping since March 26th of last year. That was the last time I was in a grocery store. Yeah,
I feel you. Nick does almost all of our grocery shopping, and I am just so grateful to have a partner in every sense of the way. Plus, he's fine. Okay, he is. Boom. But he takes such good care of me and our family. And I don't have to feel bad about not being able to do some things that maybe I would have done before. I hate grocery shopping because it makes me sick, literally, and then I got to lay down for the rest of the day.
Yeah, it's very exhausting for folks with chronic illness. And I am really grateful to my husband works at Meijer, so I'll plug Meijer. But and Shipt. Oh, God, I love Shipt. It just anything where I don't have to go do that. It's so taxing to do just simple things like that a lot of people I think take for granted, that you can just walk up and down the aisle for half hour to an hour and not be wiped out for a day or two.
Yeah. So tell me how you are preparing both your body and your mind for your infusion that's coming up, and what is that like for you?
The infusion itself, actually I just signed we sign a contract like every year or two, depending on how long the continuation study is for. That instead of sitting there for 3.5 hours, I only have to sit for 2 hours now, so that's nice. Okay. So I get there like 9 in the morning. I kind of like sit in a hospital gurney bed. It's not, super comfortable, but they usually can kind of set up the room so like I can bring my laptop and listen to music or take a nap if I need to. But yeah, I go down to the DMC and in Detroit, and I get the good drugs, and I just kind of hang out. I actually get a little bit of Solumedrol too, which kind of sucks. So it's like a steroid.
Okay.
So they give all of us Benadryl, Tylenol, and then steroids. Okay. So I call it wired tired.
Yeah, because that's weird that you have Benadryl and then a steroid. Like, so you feel like you might throw a car.
Yes.
But you also might take a nap as you're in the car.
Yes. That might happen. I don't really. So yeah, usually cut down on caffeine on those days, and just any sort of liquid, because you're attached to an IV for a few hours, and you don't want to have to run to the bathroom every so often. But yeah, that part's not too bad. This time around too, a couple weeks ago, I went and had another MRI, and that's a little challenging in the middle of the pandemic, because you can't really you can't wear the masks with the nose bending on them.
Oh, because of the metal part?
Metal.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was a new experience, to have one of those, but yeah, made it through and
Okay.
all right.
So what do you do personally? What have you done like to really both take care of yourself and honor your body during the pandemic, but still find some joy? Because I think that's the other thing that, again, sometimes poor mental health is the chronic illness, right? Sometimes that is a chronic illness, maybe coupled with something else you have going on. So how do you stay up? How do you not fall into, just the hole of despair and depression? Because I can see how that could happen even to healthy people. People who aren't having any illnesses. I can see how that can happen to somebody during the pandemic. So what do you do personally? We talked about how like it might look different for everybody, but what are you personally doing to sort of find some joy in the middle of all of this?
I think I kind of grappled with this early on because it was, there have been pockets where I've fallen into depression, and I think that's really easy for a lot of folks to do. And I share that with my clients even because I think there is such a stigma. For me, what's been really helpful is that even though I know I'm an introvert and I do need a lot of alone time and downtime, reaching out to my friends and just saying like either, hey, I'm having a rough day, or I have this plant that's sitting right here and it's got the most beautiful purple underside on the leaves, and like every time I look at it, it makes me smile. And I've literally just been sending it to my friends and like photobombing them with this little, it's a wandering Jew, but it has like it's just beautiful.
Look what I'm propagating right now.
I'm literally going to turn this. You can see the sun coming through. Isn't that just gorgeous?
Yes. Look at yours. See, plant moms unite. Plant moms unite.
Here, like, yes, this guy. Yeah, I'm all about. Yes,
same. That has been good
for my children.
Listen, I have children, but my real children might be like, Mom will water the plants before she waters us.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. My plants have brought me a lot of joy. Like we don't have any animals right now. My husband works at Meijer, so he's been working throughout the pandemic. But yeah, like my plants, my friends have been giving me joy. Finding like Netflix is okay. Like I get bored at some point. One book that I would like to plug that I've really enjoyed has been The Body Keeps the Score. It is very dense to get through.
Okay.
But it's really helped me understand too, like how I talk to my body, how I treat my body. Sonia Renee Taylor has a really great book too. She just came out with the second edition. The Body is Not an Apology. Awesome. I recommend. Yeah, just like having a different relationship with my body and how I relate to it.
Yeah.
I think I used to have a lot of like this. I think a lot of people with chronic illness feel like, what did I do for this? And I'm changing the narrative on that now.
Yeah. So I like that you talked about being an introvert and how you need your alone time. So I am too. I think people don't know that about me because they don't know that about me because when I meet people, I can be very open and bubbly, and I am attracted, to people and friendships, but I need a lot of alone time. My best friend lives in Florida, and she will tell you, like, I don't think she takes it personally because she's known me almost our entire lives. But man, I disappear. Like I will ghost you. But know that I loved you as well. But I need my alone time to recharge. My brain is on a million all the time. It takes me a long time to shut everything off. It's hard for me to get good sleep because my mind is always going.
That's one of the things that I've been struggling with too, because I just say I have a lot of tabs open all the time. Like your computer, I have a lot of tabs open all the time.
All the tabs.
I feel it. And one of the things that's been really helpful, it just kind of like that whole body rhythm, like sleep hygiene has been really key. I cannot for an hour before I go to bed be on my computer. I have to read a, paperback or hardcover book. I have to be away from screens. I really don't even like have the TV on anymore. I just can't. It's too much.
Yep. So same for me. I bring up my friend in Florida who I love so much and who just loves me unconditionally too. And I don't think she takes it personal. Like, I think she knows me. Like, I just need that time. I'm on the phone and on my computer all day because of work. I am much more apt to text you than I am to call you because I can be done with a text when I'm tired. Like I'm telling you, like sometimes too, what it is for me is because my brain is always going, I don't want to be on the phone with somebody and then seem like I don't care because I'm thinking about a million different things and it makes me feel bad and it makes me feel guilty. It really, really does. So that's something that I'm working on. But I will tell you, I just bought a pop-up portable steam sauna.
I
slept as though I just came out the womb.
Yeah.
I slept so good last night. I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I slept so good. So I have to be very intentional about sleeping too and how much sleep I get. And, I think that's another thing that helps me so I can, this is what I notice about my vestibular neuritis. When I get super stressed out, that's when I start having an episode. And I've never, thankfully, knock on wood, I've never had an episode as severe as the first time. The first time put me in the hospital for 4 days and they thought I had a stroke. I haven't had anything that severe, but I know if I don't take care of myself and I don't get good sleep, it will happen. And I like to drive. I like to be able to go and do what I want to do. And I'm very independent and I don't ever want to be in that position again because I put myself there. So, so I want to talk to you about your practicum.
Yes.
I want you to tell me, so when are you going to be done? So tell us where you're going to school, what you're going to school for, and then I want you to tell me specifically who you're working with right now or who you want to work with in the future.
Okay. So I am going to school at Michigan School of Psychology. Michigan is one of the few places where you can actually practice as a therapist with a master's. So the Michigan School of Psychology has an accelerated 11-month program. I have a fly in here somewhere, sorry.
It's warm outside. Hello, fly.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, go ahead and fertilize these plants real quick while you're in here. That's what I think.
Right, yeah, do your job. So I'm in an accelerated program at Michigan School of Psychology, and my practicum is actually at the Southfield Mental Health Center, and we have. I really love this program, especially with Southfield Mental Health, because I get to work with social workers and social work students. So we're kind of like bringing all different things to the table, and actually one of the reasons I can't do the Sunday you choose with you is because that's when our practicum group supervision is on Sunday. So one of the things that I'm working with, let me pull this up real quick, is St. David's Episcopal Church. We are working on this, like it's a somatic program. So we call it SOMA. And once a month, we're kind of like working through what's going on in your body. And the series sort of that we're working on is with political healing. We started in January. Yes. So January, I think it was the 11th, we started, like the Reverend that is there is Chris. And we started talking and we're like, we originally were doing like these meditations. And it's like, yes, that is good. And folks need to, have these spaces where they can take deep breaths and, really ground themselves. And that is helpful. But let's really like lean into these conversations after what happened at the Capitol on the 6th. So we started talking about like having a political healing conversation, like how we've gotten on both sides of the aisles. Now, what do we do? How are we going to talk to one another? Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
So actually this weekend, we're going to be having another conversation. And we're actually calling this one Finding Your Political Voice. So still holding space for like the discord that's happening, but doing it in a respectful way, because there are a lot of uncomfortable conversations that are happening in families, mine included. And we are where we are at, but how do we get past? How do we move the needle? How do we come back together and have the difficult conversations that we need to have?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm really grateful that they're giving us the opportunity to like bring this into the community and partner, with the churches and things like that. Some of my other classmates are working with the YMCA and they're having youth groups and different things like that. But it's such a unique opportunity that we're getting in to be able to work with people in the community.
You know what? I'm pleasantly surprised that you said that you're working with the churches on that, because man, if anywhere needs healing right now, child, it's the church. And I'm telling you that, like, I used to be deep up in that church. I ain't there no more. But maybe that'll change one day. There's a lot of healing that needs to be done there. There's a lot of discrimination and racism that, is rooted with particularly Christian evangelicals, white Christian evangelicals. And so there's a lot of healing that needs to go on there. And I'm so glad that you're a part of that conversation, because I know that you're an ally. I did a conversation last night, a quick chat about who's an ally, and I know you to be one. So I'm so glad that you were here today to have this conversation with me. I think that it was just a really great conversation, not just for me, because I just will hog you all to myself, but for other people too. So I want you to, if you can really quick, if you are able, you were telling me about a very specific group of people that you are working with right now in a group. Can you talk about it without giving too much detail? But can you share who you're working with?
Yeah, the men's group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I am working, one of the other practicum sites that I have, I see individual clients, but my supervisor is involved in this group for, it's a men's group. It's a 50-50 split of court-appointed folks and folks that are there voluntarily. And we meet online. And these men have perpetrated violence, whether it's emotional or actual physical violence, generally in domestic situations. But these guys come to this group every week and talk about, their triggers and their buttons. Obviously, I can't go, into detail about what specifically they're dealing with, but it's so interesting because all of my clients are female, and we were kind of talking before this call, like I've got two sisters, I've got my mom, I've got my dad, who is quite in touch with his feelings and being able to actually emote not just anger, but other experiences. But a lot of these guys, they have been taught and socialized that anger is the only acceptable feeling men can have. And so it's really been challenging me as a feminist to be in this group, but also to learn that empathy too. For there is an author that I have to shout out to, Adrian Michael. He wrote a book called He Was Taught to Be This Way. It is an amazing book, but also to like see it happening in real life. Like these guys, this didn't happen by accident. They were taught to be this way. That we are socializing men that anger and frustration is the only emotion that's okay to show. But in this group, we're able to really parse through that and like, what's the underlying feeling for you? What's happening behind your eyes? I know this is what you want to do, and this is how you normally would react. How do we figure out a different way to do that? it's really, really awesome to watch.
Well, that sounds like very important work too. I know that in our household, we are raising two men, two young biracial Black men. And, you know, we can grow up angry in this world. And we got a right to be angry in this world. I have been angry for years. But man, I'm tired of being angry, and I don't want my kids to grow up angry. I just don't. So I think that's really important work you're doing. I'm so glad that you're sharing that with us. And I'm going to put, what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and in the comments, drop your, you have a Psychology Today profile, right?
I do. I don't know.
So put your Psychology profile in the comments so that people know where they can find your Psychology Today profile. And while you do that, I have an email for you so that if somebody wants to get in touch with you and they want to email you about any of the things that we just talked about, or they want to see you for therapy, they know how to get in touch with you.
Yes.
So drop that
I'm having a little bit of a difficult time.
I've got it too. Let me see.
Do you? Okay. If you wouldn't mind dropping it in, it looks like I have to sign in or something.
Yep, that's okay. Here it goes.
Thank you.
I just put it in the comments there. So it's going to show up if you're watching right now, because I'm on StreamYard. If you want to go and take a look at Carly's Psychology Today profile and look and see what she's doing and get in touch with her, because maybe you want to schedule some services with her, make sure you go to my Facebook page. Don't go to my personal Facebook page, because if I don't know you, I'm not going to accept you. I'm gonna be real. Listen, you don't know how many I've got so many requests on there. I don't even look, because there's a bunch of weirdos out there. Listen, I was just telling Nick, sidebar, the other day that somebody has been trying to catfish me, man, for like a whole 7 months now. Almost every day I get a new profile with somebody that's got just a profile picture that they stole from somewhere and like a background photo. I'm like, listen, get off of me. No. And I know it's somebody that's just trying to connect with me because I probably won't accept their friend request, because I don't trust anybody anymore. I'm working on something, okay? Damn it. So, but you can go to my Facebook business page. So you can go and find that profile on my Facebook business page. It's under Maximum Communications. Carly, what do you want to tell the people in closing?
Be kind to yourself and give yourself some grace.
Yes. Yeah. So be kind to yourself. Be brave, because when you talked about saying no in the very beginning, it's not easy for us to say no to people. So you need some CPR? I'm on the way, girl.
It's one of the many joys of MS.
Oh, dang.
You start coughing for no reason.
Oh, well, listen, I hope that your infusion goes well. I'm sending you so much love and warm healing vibrations. You know, I'm always praying for all my friends every day. And so, you know, you're there too. And I want to thank you so much for being here today. This was so fun.
Thank
you.
You
choose Sunday on a Thursday. Who knew? We could do whatever we want.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So keep in touch with me. I need to know about these plants. And I know that as soon as it's safe, because we tried to do this before, we tried to have lunch before.
We did.
We were still working then. I was trying to get my life with this business, but life has been given. I'm all good now. Trying to take really good care of myself. Still kind of scared to go out and do some things because I'm so afraid. I'm not supposed to live in fear. So y'all don't go inboxing me about it, okay? Especially my Christian friends. Don't go showing me scriptures. Okay, I know I'm not supposed to be living in fear. However, Corona is real, and I'm trying to be,
everybody's comfort level is completely different, and we need to be respectful of that too.
That's right. So when we're both ready, boom. In fact, maybe we do a zoo trip, because me and Dom said we're going to go to the zoo, and come on, girl, go with us.
I would love that.
All right.
Love that.
Karen, I see you there. Karen says, thank you so much. What a great conversation. Karen, thank you so much for joining in our conversation. This was good. It was good for my soul, and I hope it was good for yours too. So, hey, everybody, thanks for joining today. Hey, I'll be back on Sunday. I'm going to be talking to Jessica Pinto from the Southern Wayne County Regional Chamber. Carly, you had some other information that you wanted to share really quick before we go.
Oh, yeah. So specifically for this Sunday, for this, the political healing conversation that we're having is open to the public. So I can share some information maybe on we can coordinate this, I'm sure. But I
think they can email you too. If they're interested in attending,
yeah, send me an email at what's on the screen there. I can give you a flyer. It's a Zoom link. We are not in person, but it is open for anyone who would like to join in on the conversation. It's not required that you were at our session last week. So
good.
Open to the public.
All right. Carly Podzikowski, girl.
You got it.
Podzikowski. Thank you so much for being here. I love you so much. You know, I'll talk to you soon.
I will. Take care. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.